Hello, I'm Urban Banshee, and I'm here to talk about some more Berenstain Bear chapter books. The Berenstain Bears was a book series that started in the 80s and was mostly a picture book series that taught lessons for kids. I grew up reading the books and have a fond nostalgia for them, even when they weren't the best. At some point, a chapter book series was started, with the same basic characters but for a slightly older audience. I've already reviewed the first 4 books, and I'm ready to talk about the next few. Important characters. Brother Bear is pretty close to being the main character. He is 10 years old and is usually a pretty decent kid. He has a strong sense of justice, but like many kids, is swayed pretty easily. His grade is taught by Teacher Bob. He has a little sister named Sister Bear. Sister is about 8 years old and has a decent relationship with her brother. And yes, their names really are Sister and Brother. Last name Bear. In fact, their parents are named Mama and Papa Bear. Mama Bear is the typical always right mom type. She is a stay-at-home mom and often steers her family in the right direction because she isn't the type to do it herself. Papa Bear is the dumb dad type. It is toned down a little in the chapter books, but in some of the picture books and cartoon episodes, he is dumb enough to have you wonder how he has survived to adulthood. He is a freelance carpenter, though, and is supposed to be extremely talented at it. Cousin Fred is often seen hanging out with sister and brother, and he is supposedly their cousin, even though there is no mention of who his parents are, and if they are related to Papa or Mama. He is pretty smart and reads the dictionary for fun. This is how they use words that the authors weren't sure kids would understand. It will be mentioned Fred reads the dictionary for fun, and he then explains the definition of the word in question. He is also 10 and in the same class as brother. Too Tall is also in the same class as brother, though he is a little older. He is big, mean, and a bully. He is the leader of his own gang. His gang members have names, but they are interchangeable. The books also seem to favor him. Despite everything he does on page and what we're told he does off page, he is given an absurd amount of grace from the adults in his life and is an important character. I will probably never let it go that he has done and sold drugs in a previous book. Queenie is another cub in Teacher Bob's class and is Too Tall's on-again, off-again girlfriend. She is popular and a flirt, but usually only to make Too Tall jealous. I think that's enough of a primer. On to the Berenstain Bears and the new girl in town. It's spring, the season of love, but despite Sister's teasing, Brother says he isn't interested in love. Guys, he's 10. They're still in elementary school. Other girls are obviously interested in him, but he doesn't feel that way about any of them. While they are walking, they see Too Tall's dad grab him, put him in the car, and drive away, leaving behind Queenie, who had been walking with Too Tall. They asked Queenie what Too Tall's dad had said. He had said that it wasn't right for someone of the Grizzly clan to be seen with a member of the Bear clan. Back at home, Papa takes a drink of milk and spits it out, saying it tastes like onions. The milk is from Farmer Ben's farm, and the meadow the cows usually eat from has been fenced off by Squire Grizzly, since Squire Grizzly says he refuses to share land with someone of the Bear clan. So they ended up eating onion grass, which ruined their milk. A few things though. First, it's not very cool of Farmer Ben to sell bad milk. It sucks that the cows ate the onion grass, but to let all your customers pay for and receive milk they can't drink is just awful. Next, the land in question that the cows usually eat from belongs to Squire Grizzly. It's not good business to have one of your main exports be reliant on someone else's kindness. Is it lame that Squire Grizzly changed his mind about allowing Farmer Ben to use that land? Yes, but it's his land. Why hasn't Farmer Ben killed the onion grass and get good grass for his cows after all this time? The old feud of the Bear clan and Grizzly clan has started up again. They used to fight over everything, including what to name their country. The Bear clan won that one, with it being called Bear Country. So, Bear Country isn't the state they live in, or county, or providence. It's the actual country. Okay. Mama and Papa tell the cubs that times are different now and that they get along with grizzlies just fine. That families have married and it was a different time then. In fact, Squire Grizzly is Papa's biggest customer. Just then the phone rings. It's Squire Grizzly and he tells Papa he will never hire him again. They both yell before they hang up. So what actually started this feud back up? No idea. If it was Squire Grizzly who suddenly decided he didn't want someone from the Bear clan using his land, the story never addresses that he is the one who instigated it. I get it's trying to have the feud start back up, and part of the point of the feud is that nobody knows who started it and why. But give me something. A misunderstanding or an accident that starts the feud back up. So that is not what started the feud that is a problem, but how all the adults address it and overreact. At school, all the cubs are fighting, obviously influenced by their parents. Then a new cub shows up. She is Bonnie Brown and is Squire Grizzly's niece. She is also a model and has done some acting in commercials. Brother is smitten with her on sight, and she ends up liking him too. Bonnie invited Brother over to Squire Grizzly's mansion to hang out and get a tour. But as soon as Squire Grizzly sees Brother, he gets super angry, yells at the 10-year-old kid, and kicks him out. The whole town is fighting. No one wants to do business with the other side, which is extremely dumb because Squire Grizzly owns most of the businesses in town. Farmer Ben is the main crop producer for the town, but of course the actual problems with such a feud aren't addressed. It's more bad because no one is getting along. At school, they have to decide what play they will be doing. I bet you'll never guess what famous play they do. Yeah, it's Romeo and Juliet, written by, brace yourself for this bit, William Shakespeare. No notes, I'm just gonna let this one speak for itself. Brother and Bonnie get the lead roles as Romeo and Juliet, and yes, they practice kissing. A lot. Mostly the extra practice is because Brother blushes every single time, and Bonnie is trying to help him not blush as much. The play is performed and all the adults go, "Oh no, that's us!" and get over their feud. All that fighting, gone. Bonnie and Brother end up not going out and decide to just be friends. Personally, I don't really care for the emphasis on romance in this series. I get some kids did date that young or have crushes, but it just strikes me as odd how much it plays a part in these books. It might just be me, I know my experiences weren't standard, but it just kind of weirds me out having all these elementary kids going on about dating and kissing and liking each other. That feud, though, that certainly was a decision. I wouldn't call it contrived, because that would imply that something set it off. Honestly, if I wanted to be uncharitable to Squire Grizzly, I could say it was all his fault. He is the one that suddenly brought up the feud as an excuse to no longer allow Farmer Ben access to his field. He then also called up Papa to tell him he was basically fired and he would no longer be hiring him, and then yelled and kicked Brother out of his mansion. Too Tall's dad was technically the first adult we saw that was upset about the feud, but what set him off is never even asked. I'm not sure what is worse, how easy the feud started back up, or how easy it was resolved. If you have been following along, this is yet another book that introduces a new character. Bonnie will be a reoccurring character. Next is the Berenstain Bears and the Red-Handed Thief. A new teacher is coming to teach a special social studies class for a single grade. His name is Mr. Dweebish, and he is from Bear Country University. The class is Foundations of Democracy, and if it goes well, he will come back next year and the class will be for every grade. Currently, only Brother's class will be getting the special class, with Sister and Lizzie being allowed to attend. During the class, Too Tall interrupts Mr. Dweebish, who is trying to explain what the foundations of democracy are, like voting. Too Tall just says he gets his way in his gang, because he is in charge. Mr. Dweebish says that is like a dictator, and Too Tall is probably unpopular outside of his gang. He then goes on to say that democracy is there to protect unpopular people with unpopular opinions. For example, the mayor can't tell the police to arrest Too Tall for saying democracy is dumb. Freedom of speech. It's a little odd how the next point gets made, but Too Tall tells Mr. Dweebish that if someone steals from him, he will pop them and take it back. This causes Mr. Dweebish to bring up innocent until proven guilty. He asks Too Tall, what if he didn't see them do it? Too Tall says, just hit him until he confesses, and it doesn't matter if he beats up the wrong cub. A couple cubs in class start arguing with Too Tall, and Too Tall slings insults at them. He antagonizes Freddy until he gets out of his seat to try and fight Too Tall. Mr. Dweebish yells for everyone to return to their seats, to which Too Tall remarks that he is already in his seat, and it's all these wimps and nerds that are running around. And Mr. Dweebish agrees with Too Tall, glares at the class, and tells them they have to raise their hand to speak because he is talking with Too Tall. Too Tall continues to argue that he would just use force to get his way, and that is why he has a gang. No one raises their hand and just argues with Too Tall about what if the other gang is bigger and meaner, until the class officially devolves into chaos. I'm sorry, Mr. Dweebish wanted the class to let him continue to argue with a child. He literally scolds the class for interrupting his discussion with Too Tall, but he was fine with Too Tall just blurting out whatever he wants. It gets to be a bit frustrating at times with how much the teachers just allow Too Tall to do whatever he wants with little to no consequences. Not to mention, Mr. Dweebish never addresses the fact that Too Tall keeps talking about how he will use violence. He just keeps reiterating that democracy protects people like Tootall and how other people can't use violence against him. The book tries to frame this discussion as Mr. Dweebish not backing down from Tootall and giving him as good as he gives. And the other cubs do laugh at him at least once. But I really read it more like those times when a single kid disrupts the entire class and the teacher thinks they are doing that kid a favor by indulging them. I do not miss public school. The next day, Barry comes running into the lunchroom distraught. He had a bunch of his baseball cards in his locked locker and someone has stolen them. 2 of the cards are valuable and he had brought them in to do a trade. Brother had just been saying that Tootall would surely get revenge for being laughed at. That plus his previous crimes and antics, the cubs are certain Tootall is the thief. The next day, something valuable is stolen from Sister's locked locker. The principal had been informed both times and he says he will set up hall patrols. In class, Mr. Dweebish asks the cubs about the thefts and what they think. The cubs think they should just check everyone's lockers, which starts them on the topic of privacy and rights. They try to accuse Tootall of being the thief, but Mr. Dweebish stands up for Tootall and tells them that they have no evidence and Tootall is innocent until proven guilty. He says just because someone has done something bad in the past doesn't automatically make them the culprit. Technically, yes. But there is more to our justice system than innocent until proven guilty. We have rights, yes, but you can't just go, prove it, and the police go, rats, guess we can't do anything to even investigate this. Even more lockers are robbed, so Sister, Brother, and Fred once again don their detective hats as the Bear Detectives. They discuss how it's odd how the lockers are being broken into. The only way in would be getting the combinations. Though they don't know how he is doing it, they decide to shadow Tootall. But they are noticed and Tootall and the gang just prank them. The only locker that hasn't been stolen from yet in the democracy class is Brother, so they set up a booby trap. It's a paint bomb with a red dye that won't come off for days. They figure the lockers must be getting broken into during the night, so they set it up and wait for the next day. In the morning, the locker was opened and stained red, but Tootall and his gang are clean. Mr. Dweebish doesn't come into class though. Brother has a thought, so at lunch, Brother, Sister, and Freddy go to the house Mr. Dweebish is staying at. Mr. Dweebish is stained red with dye. He was the one stealing everything. After he broke into Brother's locker, that day he was going to go into class and come clean. It was going to be a lesson to not accuse someone just because they are unpopular and might have been in trouble before. Sister calls out Mr. Dweebish by accident. Wow, said Sister, I'll bet Mr. Honeycomb is really mad at you. And Mr. Grismeyer too. You sent them on a wild goose chase. And come to think of it, you invaded Cub's privacy too, and you stole stuff. I thought I'd never see my Bear Scout flashlight again. Mr. Dweebish apologizes and says he will not be returning to their school. That he can go a little overboard with his lessons. Everyone learns the lesson, innocent until proven guilty. I don't think I could overstate how awful what Mr. Dweebish did is. The book treats it as him just getting overzealous with teaching, but it's not just the theft. He was there telling them how they have rights, only to be the one to violate those very rights. And even at the end, he is more embarrassed at how he was caught than actually feeling that what he did was wrong. Mr. Dweebish, even after being called out, still sort of believes that he was in the right, that he might have gotten carried away, but because he had good intentions, that he was still in the right. But rights are to protect us from those who think that this time can be an exception. Mr. Dweebish using his position of power to violate the students' rights is even worse than a cub accusing another cub of theft. It's also frustrating how he put Tootall's rights above the rest of the class. He never called Tootall out over his threats of violence, or even said that his way of thinking was bad. It was more important to him that Tootall feel protected than making everyone equal. To a certain degree, I understand what Mr. Dweebish was going for. He wanted Tootall to understand that he is already being protected by democracy, even if he didn't know it. But if you really cared about Tootall, framing him for thefts isn't the way to go. Mr. Dweebish stole this stuff because he knew Tootall would be accused of the thefts. Because Tootall is a known thief. This isn't unfounded prejudice. You look at the most likely suspects first. And all this did was give Tootall extra ammo next time he gets caught. If anything, this would make someone like Tootall more bold. All he would have to do is mention this situation next time he's accused of something. Of course, the cubs in the book are fine with the outcome, but personally I'd be pissed. giving my stuff back days later doesn't undo the emotional distress of having something important of yours stolen, and from a place you thought was secure. I'd think twice about ever using my locker again in such a situation. And more, Tootall is being written like he is just misunderstood and a bit of a rough guy. At a certain point, Tootall is a more well-rounded character than literally anyone else in this book series. Are we ready for another new cub coming to town book? That'll make half the book so far introducing a new cub. The Berenstain Bears and the Wheelchair Commando starts with Freddy, brother and sister talking about the new cub. They don't know anything about him yet, but they do discuss what they would like the new cub to be like. Brother hopes it'll be a boy who is good at basketball because they wouldn't mind replacing Tootall. Even though he's a good player, he is a selfish player, and he plays dirty. Apparently he is known to grab another player's pants when they jump to hinder them, or stomp on someone's foot. Over in Big Bear City, we get to see the family and the cub that will be moving to Beartown. Harry McGill uses a wheelchair and is a whiz at the computer, though now he spends all his time on a computer. His parents talk to each other about him and how all his friends are also in wheelchairs, but he used to at least hang out with them, but now they only talk on the computer. The dad says it does make sense because it is more of a hassle for those in wheelchairs to get around, so of course they would all prefer to hang out through computers. Harry used to try and get along with non-disabled cubs, but they treated him weird, so he has now given up on trying. But he will be the only disabled cub in all of Beartown, so if he wants friends, he will have to make friends with cubs who don't use wheelchairs. Back in Beartown, brother, sister, and Freddy talk about the new cub. They found out he uses a wheelchair. He shows up to school, and Queenie takes one look at him and declares he is going to need a lot of help. Sister tries to tell Queenie what Mama Bear said, that they should treat him like any other cub, but Queenie retorts, "Just look at him." Harry is unaware of this and just ignores all the cubs and heads to class. Queenie then tries to say hi and offer help to Harry while in class. She means well, but is not very tactful and is just over the top. Teacher Bob then tries to introduce Harry, but he stumbles over his words a little while trying to figure out what to say. So Harry coldly says that everyone already knows which cub is the new cub and yells that it's the one in the wheelchair. Teacher Bob tells the class that the school just got new computers, but since he doesn't really know much about them, he would like to ask for help. No one offers to help. Harry refuses to go to recess. Teacher Bob talks to him, and Harry says the other cubs don't really want to know the real him. They're just curious how he got disabled. Teacher Bob tries to push it, saying it is required for every student to go to recess, unless, he mumbles, they aren't physically able. This makes Harry mad, and he leaves angrily saying, "Don't worry, I'm able." He parks his wheelchair under a tree and tries to ignore everyone. Of course, Queenie can't leave well enough alone and goes up to him and asks him how he got crippled. Her words, not mine. Instead of answering, Harry tries to go back into the school. After school, his dad asks how it was, and Harry is very upset. He is certain Teacher Bob was only trying to be helpful because of his disability, not because he was new, and he is very upset that Queenie asked the question. Sister talks to Mama about Harry, and Mama tells her he's probably upset that everyone only seems to care about what he can't do and not what he can do. The next day at recess, Harry silently gives everyone a business card that says why he is in a wheelchair. Brother notices the cards have been printed and figures out Harry must have a home computer, which is a big deal at the time. So Brother tells Teacher Bob Harry might know some stuff about computers. But Harry gets super angry at Brother, saying he doesn't want special attention from a teacher. Tootall and his gang are off suspension, so he hassles Harry. He also calls Freddy a nerd, which Freddy hates. Brother gets upset at Tootall and stands up to him, as he has done in the past. He then tells Harry to not worry about what Tootall and his gang says. To which Harry gets mad again, telling Brother to leave him alone and he doesn't need special protection just because he is disabled. This gets Brother upset, and he calls Harry a jerk, saying he stands up to Tootall all the time, regardless of who Tootall is bullying. And once, he even dumped Tootall in the trash, but he would never do that for Harry. Harry smiles and tells Brother he is alright. Brother smiles back, and now they are friends. Harry does end up helping set up the computer center, and over the next few days becomes friends with a bunch of cubs and is pretty popular. Tootall is secretly jealous of Harry's sudden popularity, especially since the mean nickname he tried to give him he actually liked, and now everyone is calling him Wheels. Harry ends up accepting a basketball challenge from Tootall, but with a twist. It'll be wheelchair basketball, and Harry gives Tootall a week with a borrowed wheelchair to practice. Tickets are sold to students because Harry wants to raise money for modems for the computer center. The school endorses the tickets and even lets them use school printers for them. Too Tall shows up and the game is on. It is no contest who wins. Harry does circles around Too Tall. Everyone is worried Too Tall will get mad, but instead he is amazed at Harry's skills. He suggests they find a game they are both good at. Harry says the only other game he plays is chess, which gets Too Tall excited. Too Tall says no one in his gang can play. Turns out Too Tall is the champion of Bear Country School. He walks alongside Harry as they chat, now friends. As far as plots go, this one is fairly middling. Not bad, and not as boring as Nerdy Nephew, but what should have been a story about being able to open your heart again, or about not treating others differently based on your assumptions, once again centers around Too Tall. Harry had clearly been ostracized by other cubs in the past, though I wish the book had shown some examples so Harry didn't come off as spiteful. What we do see is Harry making his mind up. So it really didn't matter what anybody did, he would have taken it the wrong way. I'm torn. On one hand, it isn't Harry's responsibility to educate everyone about his disabilities, but on the other, he could have been a little nicer to people who aren't being malicious. The story does go a bit too hard on the moral that Harry is just as capable as everyone else. He is not only good at basketball, he is really good, and he is amazing with computers, and is really good at chess. Harry shouldn't have to excel at everything he does to be accepted. Maybe have it be pointed out that what the Cubs thinks is helpful, like giving Harry a push, is not only unwanted, but it's taken away his body agency. Like someone picking up someone else and placing them where they think they should go without permission. But then have them overlook something that he would struggle with, like having something out of his reach, like a pencil sharpener. Of course, the story brings us back to Too Tall, who once again is being shown in a favorable light. He starts the book off suspended, but ends up being friends with Harry. The last book I'll talk about today is the Berenstain Bears Gotta Dance. Brother and sister are chatting while walking and the spring dance comes up. But anytime dancing comes up, brother makes fun of dancing. Sister tells him she heard a rumor that Bonnie was going to ask Too Tall to the dance. This gives brother pause. He kinda sorta likes Bonnie, but he can't ask her to the dance. He can't dance. Mama makes brother take sister to her ballet class. Too Tall is outside the building just mocking everyone that goes past, being a basic 90s bully, though he is overly nice to Bonnie when she goes past. Brother escorts sister all the way to her class, and her teacher gets super excited when she sees a boy in her class. Her teacher's name is Madame Baryshnikov. You ever read something and realize that it has obviously never been uttered out loud? Yeah, I'm going to just refer to the teacher as Madam. I'm not saying that abomination of an attempt at a bear pun name again. Brother tells Madam that he isn't there to join her class. To this, she looks brother up and down in an unfriendly way, circles him, and then pinches and pokes him. She then insults him. "I was wrong, my darling," she said. "This is a puny chicken." She walked around him again and frowned. Yes, this is a puny chicken with rubbery arms, wobbly legs, and muscles of jello. Such a creature could never do the catches, lifts, and carries that a male dancer must do. Why, a strong wind would blow him away. Poof. Of course, brother is offended. He says he isn't weak and is allowed to attempt a catch, only to fail and be mocked by the whole class. Why is an adult's first reaction to being told no mocking a child? Brother wasn't even rude or anything. Madam just got way too excited when she simply saw him, and he corrected her misunderstanding. Instead of leaving the building, brother sees a gym with lots of equipment and uses the class time to bulk up. Every time he takes sister to her class, he spends the class time in the gym, and as their recital gets closer, the classes increase in frequency. Madam is worried about the fact she doesn't have a male dancer for the ballet recital. That's entirely on her. Why would you plan for the ballet that requires a male dancer when you know you don't have one? Not every single ballet sequence has a catch between a male dancer and a female one. I'm not an expert on ballet, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say most dances don't have a catch. Madam catches brother during a mid-lesson break and comments on his body. Specifically that she can tell he has more muscles, but that doesn't make me any less uncomfortable. Bonnie finds brother and tells him that she is the one who made up the rumor. Her hope was that it would give him a push to learn to dance, but all it's done is stress him out. Bonnie tells him that she won't be going to dance with someone else. And in fact, she won't go to the dance at all if he doesn't feel like going. They can go do something else together that day. Madam talks to brother again while he is exercising and tells him she will make him a deal. If he helps her with the recital, she will teach him how to dance in time for the spring dance. He will have to practice every day, but he agrees. Bonnie and sister are happy since they are the ones who came up with the plan, though they will keep it a secret. Tootle is trying to flirt with Bonnie a lot, and when he reaches out to grab Bonnie, brother stops him. Brother grabs Tootle, lifts him above his head, and tosses him into the trash. Prior to all his exercising, brother wouldn't have been able to do this. The recital goes well. The spring dance is in the same building afterwards. Tootle sneaks into the locker room before brother can change out of his ballet suit. Tootle shakes the contents of a small box on brother's stuff and hides before he is seen. Brother changes clothes and heads to the dance. Brother is dancing with Bonnie when he suddenly starts wiggling and twitching like crazy. Tootle had put itching powder in his shorts. Everyone just thinks he is doing an interesting dance and they clap. Brother is awarded the prize for most original step. He rushes to the locker room to shower. He names the dance The Itch. This one is a bit more normal. Everyone has something they're self-conscious of, and the problem and solution are pretty straightforward. I don't like how Madam mocked brother. I know it's supposed to be that harsh teaching that is supposed to rile them up to prove the teacher wrong, but in real life, it might have given a kid body issues for life. Also, how come they have to shoehorn Tootle into every single story? He plays a key role in my two favorite stories later on, but once I notice how the authors favor him, it's kind of hard to stop noticing. Itching powder is such a cartoon thing to happen. I remember old cartoons having someone use itching powder as a comedy beat, but as an adult, knowing more, itching powder just means you gave someone an allergic reaction. Not fun and potentially serious. It was after reading Gotta Dance, I realized that the order of the books on Goodreads was wrong. Wheelchair Commando mentions the incident where brother tossed Tootle in the trash, but it's impossible to find out the proper order for the books, so I'll just stick with my current list. Overall, these four are fine. I have my gripes with Red-Handed Thief, but there is enough going on that keeps them mildly interesting. Even Gotta Dance. Its seemingly bare-bones plot works well enough with the conflict being internal. I personally question the need for chapter books for these characters. Mostly because despite the extended length and being able to write for a slightly older audience, most of them seem to lack substance. I would just have liked to see a bit more care, more depth, just more. Instead, as I read more and more of the series, the world and characters become smaller and more flat. Except Tootle becomes the most interesting and relatable character by the end, in my opinion at least. If you only read any of these four books, you might think the series is fairly tame. Some things might not have aged that well, but that is also part of the fun of reading older books. If you had seen my first set of reviews, you might wonder why I said the books get wild. Don't worry, these were the calm before the great highs and the lows the series is able to reach. Until next time, I'll be in my cave of books hiding from responsibilities.